Well, the first thing is I want to say a word about. I'll say a word about Brookfield. This is a Canadian success story. It is the largest infrastructure investor and developer in the world. It is one of the largest, if not the largest, developer of renewable power in the world. And who benefits from that? That's Canadian pensioners. That's Quebec pensioners. That is teachers. That firefighters. It is a series of people, including individuals on this stage, benefit from that. Now, always acted with integrity, served the shareholders of Brookfield when I was there. I have left that. I have followed all the rules well in advance. I have followed all the rules well in advance.
Let's reveal your assets like we all did.
And working for the people of Canada.
What do you own? Why don't you tell Canadians and Quebecers what you own?
Monsieur Blanchet, we're
That wasn't the defining moment of the debate, but it indicated again how Mark Carney has no integrity, although he likes to pretend he does. We're still waiting on Kyle Kemper to join the show here. He should be here momentarily. But when we come back, we're going to look at a few clips from last night, discuss how things went. This is Stand on Guard. I'm your host, David Krayden, and I'm coming at you live on this Good Friday from our nation's capital in Ottawa. And we will be right back.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
We need political change. But we also need to resolve to resist. Yeah, Kyle will be with me momentarily here. He just needs 3 minutes more. So, anyway, thanks for tuning in today. I say it's a technical knockout. It was not an absolute disaster for Mark Carney. It should have been, but it wasn't an absolute disaster. We're going to have a look at some of the new media and independent media that tried to ask questions last night. And once again, the CBC thinks they alone, and yes, they're mainstream media kindred spirits, think they alone can define what questions are, what debate questions are. They kept saying, hey, you can't ask that question because that wasn't in the debate. And who do you think defines we still have stupid questions in these debates about climate change, like, oh, everybody's so concerned about climate change. Yeah, you're losing your house, you can't afford to buy groceries, and you're really obsessing about climate change. What nonsense. But they keep it up. They keep it up. And this is what absolutely destroys me when I watch these debates. And what the hell do we have Yves-Francois up there for? He doesn't even want to be prime minister. He admits he doesn't want to be prime minister. There's no possible way he can become prime minister because he's only running candidates in one province. He's only concerned about one province. But Blanchet continues to share the stage during an English language debate where he has no business being. Now, I want to show what I think is one of the best moments from this debate last night.
Well, the first thing...
Oh, sorry.
has his opportunity to ask the question of whomever he'd like here, and that will be?
Mr. Carney, but if I could begin by setting the stage. The choice in this election is, after a lost Liberal decade of rising cost and crime and a falling economy under America's thumb, do we want to elect them to a fourth term? Or do we want to change? Change so that you can afford food and homes. Change so that you can be safe on your street, and change so that your paycheck grows faster than your cost of living. Change with a new conservative government. Because Mr. Carney is not change. Mr. Carney, in 2020, it was recorded, you began advising Justin Trudeau. It's still on the Liberal Party website today that you are Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. They might want to update your website on that. On June 3rd of 2021, you said that inflation would be a sign of economic progress. And you advised governments, including Justin Trudeau's, your Liberal government, to print money, which led to the worst inflation crisis in a generation. Now, that means that mothers went to bed with empty fridges and empty bank accounts, worried how they'd feed their kids, that seniors worried they'd be evicted from their homes, that young people believed they'd never be able to own a home in the first place. Now, in retrospect, that you look back on the Liberal decisions that you advised Justin Trudeau to take, will you look at the camera in the eye and apologize to the many people who suffered as a result?
I'll get back to that in a second. Want to welcome Kyle Kemper. Hi, thanks, Kyle. Hey, better a little bit late than never.
Hey, David. Great to be here. Sorry I'm late.
It's okay. It's okay. That's what live broadcasting is all about. I had a devil of a time yesterday. We had sound problems. I had to do the whole show again. But thanks for joining me. I was just playing a clip there from last night, and I got halfway through it. Saw you join the show. But let's just watch the end of that, because it's probably Pierre Poilievre's finest moment in the debate last night. And I'm seeing a lot of people on YouTube this morning and even late last night saying Poilievre destroyed Carney. Poilievre walked all over him. It was a disaster for Carney. Well, it really wasn't a disaster for Carney. He survived. And I think Pierre Poilievre won by a TKO. I don't think it was by any means a massacre, like a lot of people are suggesting. I think it's a little sycophantic for me. But let's listen to the rest, because Poilievre has just said he's basically, this is the portion of the debate where the candidates are allowed to ask each other questions, which is a novel idea. And I think it worked out as well as anything in these silly debates, because I always say, what the hell is a separatist doing up there who has no interest in fighting for Canada? He has no interest in being Prime Minister of Canada. Why is he in this debate? But that's what we have to put up with. But Poilievre basically said, before I ask Mark Carney the question, I just want to say a little message to Canadians. I think it was effective. And here's Carney's response after Poilievre had just said, are you going to apologize for your inflationary policies as the primary economic advisor to Justin Trudeau?
Inflationary policies that you advised Justin Trudeau to implement.
You know, I said earlier, but I'm going to say it again. I know you want to be running against Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau isn't here.
Are you denying
I
you
am
were his
here.
economic advisor?
I did not provide any of that advice. I did not provide any of that advice.
On the Liberal Party
I'm
website.
sorry.
Are you accusing your Liberal Party of lying about your role? Because it says today, you can go to the Liberal Party website now, and it says that you were Justin Trudeau's economic advisor.
The way you judge someone, in my view, is how they act, what they do when they have responsibility. Twice I was a central bank governor. And in both cases, if I may, in both cases when I was responsible for inflation, inflation was less than 2%. I'll add that when I was here responsible for the Bank of Canada, inflation was less than 2%. Our dollar was at parity. That is the kind of success that I can deliver for this country coming out of this crisis. And what is at stake here? What is at stake here? What is at stake here?
That gave us the worst inflation that we have had in a generation, because the policies that you implemented and those of the MPs that are still in your ministry.
To the
fellow Canadians,
crisis which
the last 10 years has been about the Liberals. The next 10 years should be about you.
And that's time.
Okay, so it degenerated a bit towards the end into an old episode of Crossfire, if you remember that CNN show where they used to be basically just yelling at each other and nobody could hear what they were saying. But that's what it looked like at the end. I think this is one of two occasions where Poilievre really had Carney on the ropes, because it's difficult to do with four people on the stage. They were pairing off here. They were facing off, and I think Poilievre won this. Carney looked very baffled and befuddled at the beginning, like, how do I defend my policies? if he wasn't advising Justin Trudeau on monetary policy, what the hell was he doing? He was the chief economic advisor to Justin Trudeau for 5 years. What was he advising Justin Trudeau to do? It probably wasn't his euthanasia policy, because this guy is supposed to be a banker. So I don't think Carney extricated himself very well from that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know actually how much advising Carney was doing. And I don't honestly really believe that Carney is, like, as a central banker, understand you don't actually have that much to do. You can decide to, you have a lever that you can do three things with. You can move it up, you can move it down, or you can keep it flat. That was like the whole level of his job. And you're advised by a lot of other people. And the thing about Mark Carney is he represents a public figure of this World Economic Forum, Bilderberg, Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, global corporocratic, new world, one world government. And to think that he, like, both Justin was as well being kind of advised by that same group, and Carney's being advised by that same group. And last night, it was shown that Mark Carney is not a politician, and he's not a debate expert. He's an executive, in my opinion, and a power broker, and a power wheeler and dealer. And like, he couldn't even, if you look at that last clip, he wouldn't even look at Pierre Poilievre, and he looked very uncomfortable. And the Liberal Party has the benefit. Mark Carney is very fortunate. Nobody else would have any chance at all of succeeding in that role as liberal leader. And the one reason why he's doing well is because he has one of the best propaganda teams on the planet. They are able to crank out videos extraordinarily quickly. They are trained to the highest degree. They've been working for 10 years on developing very strong propaganda. They went through the entire COVID madness where they literally divided the entire country and fomented hate and division and fear and anger amongst our population. And yet they're still able to evoke this thing. They have the media. You have Rosemary Barton and Coyne and Mr. Clean all kind of coming out trying to shut down any talk outside of this. And we saw that last night with, like, they shut down the after questions. The night before that with Rebel News and with Juno and Kian and Treya and and David, and just the way, I'll be honest, like, sometimes, like, when you're not invited and you're not able and you're not included to participate in things, you end up taking tactics. And certainly the tactics of some of the alternative media have been a little bit evocative, let's say, but it's out of a matter of necessity, because otherwise you literally cannot talk to these guys. They're not invited. They get turned around at the door. So it ends up, being forced to do whatever you can do. And, I hope that, that we'll see, this an end to this chapter of the Liberal Party, over the next little bit. What do you think, David?
I think Mark Carney is a manufactured candidate. He's been entirely manufactured. This is not a politician. This is a central banker. This is a guy who makes a lot of money for himself and denies everybody else the power to make money. And I don't think he has a lot of integrity. He keeps saying, "I'm Mr. Integrity." And the more we learn about Mark Carney, the more we realize he doesn't have any integrity. He will do whatever he needs to do to make money for himself. He'll step on people. He'll kick people out of affordable housing. He'll invest in fossil fuels while at the same time stopping the production of fossil fuels in Canada. He will invest in pipelines while stopping pipelines in Canada. I don't think integrity is anything he's ever been well associated with. But I think that's the whole idea of Mark Carney, was the guy is normal. He's so moderate. He's so unlike his predecessor, who was a manic pop star at times, who was at least kept people awake. I'll say that about your brother. He did keep us awake. Mark Carney is Justin Trudeau on Valium. I really, really find the guy incredibly unengaging, uninteresting, uninspiring. The Carney mania, I think, is it's a myth. The Carney mania is a myth, but
no, it's complete fabrication. He doesn't look healthy. He's got horrible posture. He is not confident, and you just seen again. But this is the power of the liberal propaganda machine, and they are pushing it along with their the polling side of it, selective polling, to create this this worldview narrative that he's far and away. Now, I have personally heard some scary or foreboding intelligence or information from some communities, specifically out of Ottawa, amongst the Jewish community, like traditionally straight conservative voters are voting for Carney. And that's not representative, but that's just actually hearing and trusting kind of your gut, and it just goes to the power of the hypnosis and I'll say the mind control under which Canada has suffered from for a long time. But at the same time as well, it's we know they are shaming, and Beijing, CSIS has declared that Beijing was going to try and frame the conservatives as akin to Trump, so that and then the Liberal Party is using that tact, and people they might like Trump. Guess what? There's a lot of people in Canada that like Donald Trump, and that's okay, but they're there's social pressure to to be quiet about that. One of the things that happened in America too, and then come election day, people came out, and in the privacy of the voting booth, being able to, choose the candidate you think would be best in the right direction. I think a lot of people voted for Donald Trump, and I think, in this election, a lot of people will vote for Pierre Poilievre. And not Pierre, but the Conservatives. And that's the other thing that a lot of people we saw in that clip was Pierre said, you've been advising Justin Trudeau for the last 5 years. But the more important thing is that the entire Carney cabinet, which he already laid out, which if he wins will remain the same. There's not going to, there will be a shakeup based on the election results a little bit, but that's the general makeup. And guess what? It's the same people, folks. And Mark Carney is just coming in as a less charismatic leader. So nothing changes. The status quo continues. The nuts will get tighter on censorship, on free speech. You can see him. He's coming after X. He's coming after you, David. He's coming after those who have dissenting opinions. And they've also shown they're going to go after bank accounts, as we've seen lately too. So do not trust that. And I would just be careful.
Yeah. Well, I was totally amazed when Carney was asked about who he thinks is the greatest security threat. He said China. And this is the man who's in the pocket of China. He's demonstrated that time and time again. And I've got a clip where Poilievre actually gets him on that point. But of course, it's not just a $276 million loan he got from the central bank in China. He has been advocating that the Chinese yuan replace the US dollar as the world currency, the global currency, for years, for at least 6 years. Famous speech of his, and famous if you know Mark Carney, from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. He was speaking at a symposium. And he laid out his whole plan to replace the United States as the world economic engine with China, replace the US dollar with the yuan. He's clearly been working for China for years. But I like what Poilievre gets to here, because he needs to really go after Carney in a big way in this debate. And he does it a couple of times. I don't think he did it enough.
One on the stage, Mr. Blanchet. Mr. Singh, myself, we have our top secret security clearance. We have our top.
Oh, sorry, that's the wrong
Has
one.
his opportunity to ask the question of whomever he'd like here.
There we go.
And that will be?
Mr. Carney, but if I could begin by setting the stage. The choice in this election is, after a lost liberal decade of rising cost and crime and a falling economy under America's thumb.
Oh, sorry, I got the wrong one.
I got mine within 3 weeks. It wasn't hard.
Sorry, that's the
but
right
I
one.
felt it was important that I had it so I could be in a position to be informed
Yeah,
about
I
that
feel
dangerous
like
world and
Pierre
take decisions.
really like.
And Mr. Poilievre,
hated
it is
this
now
one by not having answered this
950
question for a
days, if
long
my
time. Like, he kind of waited
numbers
for
are
the
right,
exact moment.
since you've had the opportunity to get your top secret security clearance and you've refused. Why?
Well, first of all, I have got my security clearance when I was a minister. I got top secret clearance at the time, so there's no problem getting that. But when the government made this recent offer, they said that if I got the secret security clearance briefings, that I would be gagged under the security law, and I could be prosecuted if I spoke freely about matters of foreign interference. Now, given that Canada has experienced Chinese interference by Beijing, the government of China, in 2 consecutive elections, I needed to do my job to speak freely without fear of prosecution. And that was not something I would be allowed to do. Even Thomas Mulcair, the former leader of the NDP, said that when he was the leader of the opposition, he never would have accepted the kind of gag order that your government and Mr. Trudeau's government was attempting to impose on me. And it's good that I'd made that decision, because it has allowed me to speak freely about things like the case where one of your candidates, sir, actually said that he wanted to send a political opponent to China under a bounty threatening his life or imprisonment, and you refused to get rid of him. Now, it might have something to do with the fact that you went to China not long ago to get a $250 million loan for your company. But the reality is, you refused to stand up for a Canadian who was being threatened by a foreign government, and I was able to speak freely on that matter because I refused the gag order that the Liberal government attempted to impose on me.
Well,
that's one of his better moments. He's got him on the ropes. And Carney's response is very weak. He's staring off in the distance. I think the body language is very important to notice here, because Carney never looks at Poilievre, as you noted. He doesn't even look at the audience. He keeps looking over at something in the air. It's like he can't maintain eye contact with either the audience at home. He will not look in the camera. He will not look over at Poilievre. It's like he's above all of this. I think his arrogance comes through in a huge way. But of course, while Carney's talking about China being a security threat, Poilievre is demonstrating how he can't really believe that, because he was afraid to fire one of his own nominees because it would offend China. The guy had to step down himself. This, Paul Chang, and in the Greater Toronto area, and Markham.
The greatest threat to security is Mark Carney and the people behind him. They seek to continue the wealth transfer from Canadians into the global corporocratic elite. They've treated Canada as a treasure chest of wealth that they just extract from. And, they talk in platitudes about investing in workers and building homes. And at the core, they need workers to rule over and build their homes that they're building, that his company will likely be building. Then likely they'll be building lousy homes that benefit their shareholders. It's this notion of this very dangerous, because what's happening is, with Mark Carney in this role, talking about large socialist programs and large government spending, he's just the Trojan horse for this global unelected government to start making all the shots and further pilfering the money and putting the pressure on the people. Going to have lower quality of life, less affordability, but they don't want to kill you or make you too despotic. key thing is that it's just like the pharmaceutical companies when it comes to like healthcare. They don't want you healthy, because if you're healthy, they don't make money. But they don't want you dead, because if you're dead, they don't make money. They want to keep you in a state of chronic illness so that you need to be feeding from them all the time. And we might think, oh, no, in Canada, it's free. No, it ain't free. It's just you directly aren't paying it from your pocket. Government is paying, and you're paying the government, and your children are paying the government, and you look around and the costs of everything going up. You're paying for all that via this magical thing called inflation. So they will continue to pull it. And the other thing about Mark Carney and the true danger that he represents is he does not listen to the people. They actually have a disdain for the people. They tell everybody what to think. They know what's best in their eyes. Anybody who challenges them is extreme, is far right, is a racist, is a Nazi, is spreading misinformation or disinformation, or is an agent of Russia, or a Trumper, or MAGA, or whatever attack they can label. But they never actually listen, and they will never engage. You cannot have a qualified, intelligent discussion or debate with any of these socialist big spenders about, the fact that if you reduce taxes, if you eliminate income tax, if you eliminate capital gains tax, the amount of wealth and spending that could come back into Canada. You can't discuss how the policies of the last 10, 15, 20, 25 years, both on the Liberal and the Conservative side, the Conservatives are not innocent either, has led to a taxation regime system that pushes entrepreneurs, that pushes wealth, that pushes success out of Canada. Canada trains people, we invest in people, we have these things called SRED grants and IRAP grants that actually fund the research and development for small businesses in Canada and does amazing work. But then when the companies succeed, guess what? They leave and they take their IP out of Canada. And what this enables in the granting is it means that people succeed elsewhere. We train them here, they succeed elsewhere. And why is that important for people like Mark Carney and his friends? It's important that they leave, because if they stay here and they succeed and they make a lot of money and abundance and prosperity here, they become a threat. If you have no new money in Canada, it means the old money holds power and holds domination over the masses. If you have a bunch of successful, young, disruptive entrepreneurs, innovators, social activators coming in and really saying like, hey, this shit is fucked up and it's not working anymore. What do you mean? You represent the people? You don't listen to the people. We could be doing so much more. Why are you spending 3 times more on the CBC than you're spending on CSIS? This is crazy. And they don't want that. So they push that energy outside of Canada. They push that money outside of Canada. And what you end up having is a highly stratified, super elite. And they might not actually have like so much money, but they do have a lot of money. But they also have the power and they have the control. And they're like, if you're in business, if you lead an industry, you want to have barriers to entry, or like protection barriers against new entrants coming in and disrupting you. That's what the liberals and the conservatives and the global elite do and have done, especially well in Canada, to keep the threats away. Plus, they created a shitty low vibration environment, like ruled by fear, where there was a negative cloud of energy over life and pitting people against each other. That most free, like a lot of people who were able to just said, you know what, I'm not going to tolerate this. Personally, I was like, I'm not going to tolerate this. And I left and I came down to America. And a lot of people went, left as well. So the question is, how do we actually bring some of that beautiful energy and that spirit and that talent and innovation to actually making, Canada extraordinarily prosperous and fixing the system to really unleash the greatness and the potential of all of Canada.
Yeah, well, I think if Mark Carney wins, I don't believe he will, and I'm not just being optimistic. I don't think he's going to win this election. If he did, I think we'd have a national unity crisis, and we would lose a lot of people to Donald Trump's America. And I think that would be a foregone conclusion. I was going to show a clip with Poilievre endorsing our continued war in Ukraine, which I just find delusional. And I'm very disappointed he's not found the balls to stand up and say the war is over. We're not going to send another $1 billion to Ukraine. This is ludicrous. Let's stop, because I don't want to kill any more Ukrainians. And that's exactly what his policy, what Trudeau's policy, what Mark Carney's policy, what Jagmeet Singh's policy, they're all in agreement on this. Let's kill more Ukrainians. Let's keep the war going, even though the war has effectively been over for at least a year. There's no more Ukrainians left to fight. But Poilievre,
they're allergic to the word peace. Like, they are allergic, and the word diplomacy, and the notion of like discussing. And Zelensky gets terrified about peace because all of a sudden, the show ends, and he's an actor, and he's just been acting for the whole time. And it is very disappointing to see Pierre come out and not immediately call for peace and seek accountability of all the money and recognize how much support Canada has given them. Because one of the things that Justin would say was that we will never stop supporting Ukraine. We will be with you till the end, to ultimate victory. It doesn't matter at all because it's democracy and whatever, blah, 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 all this projection. But this is the fact that Pierre is still on that. It's tough. And Max Bernier just went on Tucker Carlson too. And I mean, I like Max, but it's like, why can't those? I think a lot of the PPC supporters, a lot of beautiful energy and intelligence and good ideas and passion, over in that camp. And it's tough to watch, Pierre say a lot of good things, but also be really soft on certain stances where, don't butter coat it. Just be straight, be honest. I mean, that's why, honestly, I think Trump is so appreciated and liked by so many people, is that he's honest. But the media has done a great job of more than just the media. The empire has done a great job of creating just so much negative energy around the word Trump and the word MAGA that people are blinded by it. I mean, David, I talked to my mother the other day, and it's my daughter's birthday on Sunday, and I was like, Mom, would you like to come down here? And she literally said, I can't because of the tariffs. I was like, what? What? It's that level of programming that people are doing, and this elbows up, these mantras and this propaganda. And it's not my mother's fault. She's a victim. She's a victim of a weaponized media and weaponized information systems. And to the point where it's and that's the thing. It's and that's why Pierre should really stop trying to pander or win the votes of, because for every liberal voter he's winning in the same thing doing that, he's losing another vote potentially to the CPC, or not being able to activate an actual voter that would come out and vote for him. Right now it's you got to get out the vote. It doesn't matter who's polling stronger. You got to get out the vote. Well, and we have to, and it would be great to know that the voting, apparatus is incredibly integral and the best voting system in the planet. And there's absolutely no opportunity for leaks and corruption. But given, everything, I think it's right to be skeptical of the core infrastructure. And that's why I personally believe we need to upgrade the entire system of governance in Canada, because Canadians don't actually have a voice. We have these representatives that do not really represent the people. They do not necessarily listen to the people. And we saw it last night with Rebel and Juno and Counter Signal. Like media isn't allowed to ask questions. And these gatekeepers like Rosie Barton and Andrew Coyne and Michael Fife and the list goes on. They believe
you've led me into my next question, actually, because that's precisely where I wanted to go next. Because here's a clip from this authoritarian press corps in Ottawa that thinks they alone can define what debate questions are. They alone can define what the issues are. They alone are allowed to ask the questions. Nobody else is. And of course, the politicians go along with this. And I just found this exchange to be utterly shocking.
Free with Rebel News. Your party takes great pride in standing against hate such as white supremacy, Islamophobia, and online.
Sorry, I didn't get your outlet.
Drea Humphrey with Rebel News.
Okay.
Your party.
You know where I'm going to go with this, all right?
Can I speak?
Yeah, you can. I'm just going to say you know where I'm going to go with it, though.
That over 200 churches have been targeted by arson and vandalism since claims of remains being discovered at former residential schools swept the nation in 2021. These claims have been disproven by bands that excavated and remain unproven by those that have not.
Again, thank you, but I'm not going to respond to an organization that promotes misinformation and disinformation like Rebel News, so no, I'm not going to respond to your question.
They have this truck going around with a video wall promoting conspiracy theories and allegations, mostly against Mark Carney. Let's face it, like we're showing it there, and so you can see this on the screen. That is one of the few things we can show on TV that appears on the side of that. The same sort of thing happened with people stacking the microphones, and the questions is going in a totally different direction.
Well, there's only so much we can do to control free speech,
I understand that.
And you got to understand that.
But, lifeguards got to look after the pool, right?
Mr. Clean.
Incredible.
And this is where we've ended up in this election. With everything going on with Donald Trump and everything going on in this economy and everything going on in the world, this is where the national Canadian election debate has ended up. And it's just exhausting. And it is the end product of multiple years of rage farming for narrow political gain and financial benefit for a very small group of people who blew this up today.
So it's just incredible. It's
unbelievable, David. And like the thing about these guys
admitting the Rebel News,
it's radical projection. It's literally everything they're saying they should be just saying into a mirror, because they have been sowing and fomenting and rage farming. Like, yes, I can understand how they can use that tact, but at the same time, are we going to forget everything that's happened?
I think we've now seen the last nail in the coffin of any idea that these people are just sort of alternative media or independent journalists or anything resembling. These were bully boys and thugs. These are performance artists. These are grifters.
Bob, I'm going to come to you on this. Here's what's going on here. To my left, there's the room there where the media is gathered. It's where they can watch the debates. This is where the scrums are happening with the leaders. There was some sort of an altercation inside there in the last little while involving Ezra Levant, who is the head of Rebel News, and other journalists. Michel Cormier has escorted Ezra Levant out. His credentials, we believe, has been revoked. Earlier in this program, you might have seen sort of some glitchy video playing because we had to go to tape because Mr. Levant and his people came over with cameras rolling and tried to interrupt this broadcast.
We've seen these people chase down Liberal politicians or NDP politicians, screaming in their faces, and then they try to raise money off of it. But when they go to deal with Mr. Poilievre, they're like little puppy dogs. Hello, Mr. Poilievre.
This is, of course, Bob Fife, who I used to know quite well when I worked on the Hill. And I can't believe how old he looks now. But I also can't believe how far he has moved from any basic conception of freedom of speech. I don't even consider this man to be a real journalist anymore. And it just amazes me. If you don't ask the questions they want, it's misinformation, disinformation, and you have no right to be a part of this. You have no right to be there at all. And I just found this absolutely disgusting. I've worked with the Ottawa Press Corps for over 25 years, either as a journalist, as a public affairs officer in the Canadian Air Force, and as a communications guy on Parliament Hill. And I know a lot of these people very well. And I'm disgusted that they're no longer upholding basic principles of free speech. I don't know what has gone twisted in their heads, but they're no longer journalists as far as I'm concerned. They have less right to call themselves a journalist than the people they despise so much, who are part of the independent and the new media out there. I really believe that.
Yeah. And again, it's just this classic projection. They are trying to scare you about others, but you should be most scared because everything they're saying is true about themselves for the large part. And it's almost gotten to the point of pathological lying. They'll call, beware of this radical fringe minority when truly they represent the radical fringe minority. Mark Carney is an exceptional example of someone who represents a radical fringe minority that does not listen to Canadians, but seeks to rule over all Canadians. And on behalf of his friends over again at Bilderberg and the World Economic Forum, and this global mega corporatocracy. If people don't know about Bilderberg, it's an annual meeting that started in Switzerland, but it's a gathering of the top CEOs and top policy people from the largest companies in the world. All the heads of the major media are there. Nothing is recorded. There's zero press about it. It's by invitation. It features acting heads of states showing up. There is a complete media blackout. Many laws are broken just by the convening of this meeting. But it's the place where, honestly, the check up on what we're going to be doing this year and in the years to come in the long plan of those who really care not about who is elected because, they can influence, they control the money system, they run the policy. That's the Bilderberg group. And Mark Carney is a very active member in it, along with many of the people that are very nearby. And again, if you think Mark Carney is going to represent Canadians, he is not going to represent Canadians. He and his friends view Canada as an opportunity to extract wealth and resources from the Canadian people into their own coffers. We saw that very clearly during the whole COVID scam. They extracted literally probably close to $1 trillion out of the Canadian sovereign wealth into the hands of their friends. And they will continue to do that. And because really there's no evidence whatsoever that they have any tolerance to listen to ideas or engage. And if Mark Carney wins Nepean, he will be the least representative candidate potentially in the history of mankind. I don't think he can name 3 streets in Nepean.
Well, probably not, but it strikes me as very amusing that these reporters are going on about misinformation, disinformation, which of course they define and the government defines. And yet they were spreading disinformation. There was no altercation with Ezra Levant at this event. Ezra Levant was not kicked out of there. And of course, Ezra, who I've known many, many years, don't get Ezra too mad because he will get you in court. And this is exactly why he was invited there. He took these people to court and said, we have a right to be there. We have every right to be there. And no, he was not escorted out. And there was no altercation. It was the mainstream media spreading the disinformation.
Yeah, like riot police afterwards too. It looked. It's like it's due to a security threat. How convenient.
And that's exactly. I did have one more clip. I'm just seeing if we can find that right now. Oh, here it is.
Honestly, I have respect for this sort of.
No, I know. I think that's what they're arguing about is the Ryan Turnbull story.
Your little chattering class, you third-party advertisers that you work for. Rebel News? Rebel News, owned by Ezra Levant, is a different company. So verbose, I'll say. Most of us didn't get a question. And what I really don't enjoy is that everyone else here was being respectful, following the rules, just being considerate to everyone else. And what you guys decided to do was to take advantage, threaten to sue, so that you could try to get more than everyone else. And now, nobody likes you.
The CBC and Radio Canada had 4 questions and we had 4 questions. Why are you lying? We had the same number as the
You guys
CBC.
threatened to sue so that you could, that's why they got the 4 questions, because the commission...
You're making that up. You're lying again.
When did the CBC get 4 questions?
Yesterday.
Yes, after they had already...
And they had the same in 2021, same in 2019.
Word they've heard in a while.
So Ryan Turnbull.
Doing this voice doesn't actually
So
work.
Ryan Turnbull. No, I'm not. I'm curious. What, do you just think that politicians should be off the hook for saying stuff like this?
What, 15
I mean,
years ago? How long ago?
He was 30.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry,
So
who are you?
He wasn't a politician, so this is when he was...
He was a 30-year-old man.
Okay.
Who called gay men perverse.
Yeah, I think I've read through your story,
Yeah.
and I know you don't even believe that that's what he said.
Oh, I
Because know you're
100%
smarter
because
than
I
that,
read
but
it.
you're just,
I read it that
yeah,
that's what
no,
he
I
said.
read it too. And you're
Okay,
I
so
don't
so
think you're a
you,
very, I mean, you don't have any sort of moral.
Right here in black and white, we follow the rules.
Oh,
it's the federal
was that like
court.
when it was in black and white saying you should only have one reporter credited so that everyone might have a chance to ask a question?
You're
But
getting
instead,
the facts wrong.
you wanted to
Nobody
take,
thinks that.
what was it, 2-minute long questions so that Poilievre only got asked 3 questions. He usually allows 4 because things move a little bit quicker at his press conferences. You guys are so verbose, I'll say. Most of us didn't get a question. And what I really don't enjoy is that everyone else here was being respectful.
Was Lincoln telling me that they had been assaulted and that they weren't allowed to come back and to make sure that I grabbed their stuff. I didn't know the extent of it because I was just quickly throwing in my earbuds and coming to talk to you. I had...
Yeah, apparently Dave Menzies was being used as a punching bag again, and it's everywhere he goes, he's always assaulted by either the police or now it's mainstream media. It's open season on Dave Menzies and anyone else at Rebel News. So,
It's just like there's a certain element of that guy had some points, like, you know, and it's like all of a sudden you would be careful because you don't want to become the enemy that you're criticizing against. So it's
exactly
to enabling.
you
know, that Ryan Turnbull thing too. I'll explain. Like, I think that guy is like has like his actual words and the policy and what he's representing is super dangerous. But I will say, like, going after Facebook posts from like 17 years ago and like playing the gotcha game is like a really dangerous precedent to set. And I know because, look, I worked with Bobby Kennedy and looking at, like, you know, understanding that you go through periods. I've said a bunch of shit in my life. Definitely. You've probably said a bunch of stuff. Everyone's has got stuff. But let's look at the actions that we take versus like trying to make big things out of, you know, like these gotcha moments, or like, you know, I just want to be a little bit, you know, careful there. But, you know, the at the larger scale, the inability for good questions to be asked, and the thing that Ezra was fighting for here was to be here, to be able to ask questions. And guess what? When you look at all the questions they asked, they were pretty solid questions. So I don't think you can really have, like, you know, like recognizing as well that the mainstream media or the subsidized media, it should be clear, the subsidized media versus the non-subsidized media, the state prostitutes and propagandists versus the real independent, actually truly independent, you know, journalists, you know, who might be independent. They might be like, Ezra makes money. they do fundraise. There's no question about that. And they have to do it more aggressively because it costs money to operate. And unless you're being subsidized by the government, where that dude's salary is directly subsidized, Fife's salary directly subsidized, Justin Ling, like, super prostitute propagandist, like his fully subsidized. So just the amount of support that this giant cohort of somewhat left, somewhat right, and you even see it like all the way to to the National Post, which it's got like some characters that will definitely omit a lot of words and statements at the behest of an editorial board that does not seek to run afoul too much, because they rely on the fucking money. So we have to stop the subsidization of the media, because it's just ultimately it leads to huge problems. And this is the same thing with medicine too. When you subsidize, like, for example, the midwifery, the midwives in Canada, like during the pandemic, like, they were forced to make sure and enforce that everybody who is getting the vaccine, if they wanted to get their money and get their funding and like, keep the thing. So just beware. Like, this is the danger of it. And you've got two classes, the subsidized and the non-subsidized, the independent.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but my final question, I just curious how you're feeling about this. What's your prediction for the April 28th election here?
I don't know. I feel like I don't trust the polls. I know people like Frank Graves and Ecos, and like, how vindictive they are, and also, like, again, Mark Carney and his friends in that power structure, they're going to take every angle, even to the point where I think, that the poly market spread right now is really, really tempting. It's like, it's bet 1,000 to win 4,000 almost on Pierre. Well, literally 2 months ago, that was totally flipped. So, but those markets are literally markets that money determines. So, and it's also like, it represents an advertising form and a polling form, because a lot of people are looking at that. So all it's taken probably is like a couple $1 million to really push that and skew that. And remember, Mark Carney and his friends are central bankers. They have unlimited money. They have the ability to print and distribute. And when Mark Carney was a central banker, you know who your best kind of friend is? Like, the best friend that you can have in the world if you're loose in morals is a central banker, because those closest to central bankers tend to do extraordinarily well. The people who lose the most are the people who have no connection to them, the general people of Canada. They're the ones that are going to take it on the lip. But Mark Carney made a lot of money for a lot of people, so he's able to call in a lot of favors right now to be able to do it. More than just Mark, his friends too. Mark Carney is not doing this for himself. This is the Liberal Party. This is the continued move towards socialism, towards the one world order. A non-sovereign Canada. They talk about maintaining our sovereignty. A non-sovereign Canada, but with a very strong maple leaf flag and, like, a lot of projected nationalism. But it's not sovereign at all, because you, as a Canadian, have absolutely no fucking voice in the governance of Canada.
Well, can't disagree with that, Kyle. And thank you for bringing your insight again to the show. You're always welcome here. Always love to talk to you. You've got so much to say about issues that are important here. So we'll see what happens April 28th. I'm predicting a slim conservative majority. I think it's possible. I think this polling has been totally lopsided for the over 60 crowd, which are all going liberal this year. They're not talking to a lot of 18 to 25-year-olds who don't vote liberal anymore, because
get out and vote too. It's like, at the end of the day, it's get out and vote, and get involved if like, just drive it. like the number, like the every year you look at the numbers of like the turnout, and if there's a 1% difference in the turnout amongst it, it would change the results. So, like, getting out the vote is going to be a big a key thing, and that might also be not work too well in the Liberals' favor of having Mark Carney projected to be such a massive winner. Very similar to, say, Hillary Clinton back in 2016. I think there's a lot of parables like this. Dude, Mark Carney is a banker, a central banker, no less. He's not a brilliant economist. He is a big banker. Do you really want a big banker deciding how to spend all of your money? You go to the bank, and most of the time people are disappointed coming out of the bank. Ain't nothing going to change with Mark.
Well, I hope people remember that on Monday, April 28th. Do you want a banker making your decisions for you? No. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me, Kyle. And it's been a pleasure as always. And stay in touch. And we'll be watching on Monday. Bye for now, my brother.
Okay. Cheers. Go Sens, go.
That was Kyle Kemper. What a guy. I always enjoy talking to him. He's got so many fantastic insights. And it was a pleasure to have him on the show again today. And we're getting close to an hour. I got to get going. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed that show as much as I did. It was a pleasure today. We'll be back again tomorrow and possibly this afternoon. We might do something with Make Canada Great Again. If we can find some time on this Good Friday, we'll let you know. Thank you so much for joining me. God bless you. God bless Canada. Godspeed. And I'm David Krayden.